one of the key takeaways was that there are three types of businesses. There are for-profit, there are nonprofits, and then there are no profits. And Logan, we finished in that third bucket. And I learned a lot of humbling lessons at age 30 going bankrupt.
Welcome. On this Origin Story podcast, I have the privilege of interviewing Mike Malloy. Now, in terms of a professional background, Mike began at Deloitte, which is the number one place to launch a career. He gained a foundational expertise there in business and technology. After that, he transitioned into entrepreneurship, founding Waveborn Sunglasses, a social enterprise that combines stylish eyewear with funding life-changing cataract surgeries. After facing business and personal bankruptcy, Mike built his career showcasing resilience and adaptability. He later became the program director at the Halcyon Incubator, guiding social enterprise CEOs and their ventures. He's got an entrepreneurial impact. Mike's guidance has led to significant milestones. 4 companies he's advised have pitched on Shark Tank, with 3 landing deals and the 4th now valued at over $500 million. His ventures and clients have raised over $145 million, creating 1,800 plus jobs and impacted millions of lives worldwide. His current focus is on Malloy Industries now. He's the founder and CEO of Malloy Industries, specializing in connecting B2B SaaS CEOs with vetted fractional executives to save time, drive growth, and achieve investor milestones. The organization has supported over 75 clients in scaling operations and reaching new levels of success. In terms of educational contributions, Mike is an entrepreneur in residence and adjunct professor at Georgetown University, where he equips students with real-world entrepreneurial skills and career strategies. He was recognized with the 2022 Outstanding Entrepreneurship Faculty Award for his impactful teaching and mentorship. He's known for his humor and creativity. Mike incorporates dad jokes into meetings, aligning with his core values of being enthusiastically fun, relentlessly generous, and flexibly learning. He emphasizes the importance of family, having started a daily dad joke newsletter and frequently involving his father in professional endeavors. Mike's career trajectory from corporate to startup to academia offers a wealth of insights into resilience, adaptability, and the evolving landscape of business and entrepreneurship. What you can expect out of this episode is that Mike will share lessons learned from his journey, strategies for scaling businesses effectively, and his philosophy on blending fun with productivity. It was a true pleasure connecting with Mike. I left feeling energized and inspired, and I know you will too. So without further ado, I give you Mike Malloy.
And we're live. Mike, it's good to see you.
Likewise, I'm excited to be here, Logan.
Yeah, excited to have you. When preparing for this conversation, I was reflecting on our initial discussion, and one of the things that stuck out about you and in my mind from our initial discussion, Mike, was the weight and the gravity that you bring to the table as a experienced business leader, as an accomplished business leader, that's balanced with accessibility. That's significant and very respectable. So I think for any viewer that comes to the table in this conversation, they should know that you are in a league of gentlemen, in a league of high integrity servant leaders that is quite rare. And appreciate you carving out a few minutes to share your perspective today.
I'm happy to be here, and it's been a lifelong journey. I'm a student of the game, and happy to share what I've learned along the way, and in hopes that it might give some of the listeners a little boost up on their journey as well.
Appreciate that. When we're thinking about the journey, it's often helpful to begin at the beginning. And I wonder, Mike, if you could start anchoring the narrative, anchoring the journey, where the journey began that's brought you to where you're at today in a professional context.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we rewind to the beginning, it was a dark and stormy night in Annapolis, Maryland. We were on September 29, 1986. And Tom and Kathy Malloy brought home their third child. And From there, I grew up in between Annapolis and Baltimore, Maryland, and I went to Boston College for undergrad. I studied math and computer science. I was a bit of a math nerd. I had a perfect standardized test score in every math test I've ever taken. So pretty good with numbers. Knew I wanted to do things with computers. Maybe I wanted to make video games. Wasn't really sure, but definitely comp sci was in the future. And I graduated from undergrad. I got a job at Deloitte Consulting. And so I spent the first 4 years helping close failed banks. There were a lot of them around 2008. And Deloitte really introduced me to the business world. I didn't take any business classes. There was no entrepreneurship program, 15 plus years ago in undergrad. And so Deloitte was kind enough to help pay for me to go to Georgetown. So I got my master's in computer science at Georgetown. And during my time there, I started working with a friend of mine on the side to start a social enterprise sunglasses company called Waveborn Sunglasses, a wave of social change being born. And Jonathan and I did it on nights and weekends for the first year until I actually finished my master's at Georgetown. Told my parents that I was going to quit my high-paying government consulting job to move to the beach in Delaware to sell sunglasses, which is every parent's dream after paying for college and grad school. Oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Luckily, my parents were actually supportive and very nurturing throughout my entrepreneurial. I would say from 25 to 30, I kind of ran the sunglass company full time, and it was a roller coaster. And I think as we go through this conversation, I'll share some lessons learned from there, some things that I have brought with me. And one of the key takeaways was that there are three types of businesses. There are for-profit, there are non-profits, and then there are no profits. And look, we finished in that third bucket. And I learned a lot of humbling lessons at age 30 going bankrupt and having to shut down a business, having humbling conversations with our 27 investors. There would be no financial return. And I also learned that you shouldn't structure your convertible notes to mature on your 30th birthday, because that was the day we actually defaulted on things and knew we had to shut it down. My parents supported me throughout it all. I actually moved back to my parents' basement at age 30 and kind of caught my breath. And I worked my way back up to a nonprofit. So then I spent the next 5 years at the Halcyon Incubator in Washington, D.C., running an incubator program for early stage social entrepreneurs. And I would bring this transition from the CEO, lead singer, rock star on stage to the bass player singing backup vocals and making sure the lighting and everything works to support other entrepreneurs. And that was a great transition and helped me to also develop some more of those servant leadership capabilities. And I've learned a lot of lessons, one of which is what's best for the team is always more important than what's best for the individual. That works in a professional setting, in an athletic setting, in a family setting. Leaders eat last, and they want to make sure everybody else is well taken care of. And around that time, maybe 2015, 2016, I started serving as an entrepreneur resident at Georgetown. I believe this is my 8th school year, wrapping up here as an EIR, which I absolutely love that role, working with the undergrad and grad students on campus to help them develop different entrepreneurial ideas, prepare them for pitch competitions. I'm actually meeting with several of my students right after this podcast recording to check in on how their internships are going this semester, as I now teach a startup internship seminar course that matches students with startups for internships. And then I teach them how to not suck as an intern and really equip them with the foundational professional skills they need, from how to send an email to what the meeting and the meeting agenda to, what your personal brand is, ikigai. We dive deeper into sales, marketing, networking, informational interviews, presentations, basically all the things that I didn't learn in college. I'm now trying to teach the next generation, and teaching them in a way such that I want them to be interested in entrepreneurship, but not so they think that we're the next Mark Zuckerberg in their dorm room building a company, but hey, could you be the 5th or 25th employee at a startup and wear several different hats, learn a ton of skills, fail fast, figure out what you love doing and what you hate doing, so that you don't spend, a 40-year career doing financial Excel spreadsheets. If you figure out in 3 months of an internship, that is not for you, and that's all right. And so loved my time at Halcyon. And there was, you may have heard of it actually, a small global pandemic a few years ago. And during that time, my wife and I moved out of DC and we moved to the beach in Delaware, ironically about 20 minutes north of where we were, where I was a decade ago selling sunglasses in Dewey Beach. We're now up in Lewis, Delaware. And I mean, it's a way of life down here. Lower, slower Delaware. We love it. And at some point, Halcyon said, "Hey, Mike, it's time to come back to the office." And that was kind of the forcing function to start Malloy Industries, which, I'll dive in this conversation, what we're doing with the future of work and fractional executive matchmaking to help B2B SaaS CEOs scale their companies. But I'm excited to be here and definitely have some good anecdotes and stories to share as we go through the conversation today, Logan.
Fantastic overview. I can say that out of all of the leaders I've met who've got a background in mathematics and in that sort of as an academic grounding point for where you launched from, to also have uh, a high degree of proficiency in storytelling is quite a rare combination. And you certainly have both. Thank you for sharing that. I think there's a few chapters that each would be a lot of fun to unpack and do a second pass through of narrative, beginning with the entrance into Deloitte, the intro to the business world for you, going from that place where you had, from an academic standpoint, you had aced every standardized math test. Am I
Yeah.
accurately characterizing that?
SATs, SAT2s, ACG, GRE. But here's the thing, guys. I was so good at numbers, but nobody taught me accounting. Nobody taught me cash flow, and I went bankrupt. So it probably would have been better to not be as good at math and not have gone bankrupt, but then I wouldn't, have as many fun stories.
Fair point. Fair point.
And I wanted to touch on one thing you mentioned too, in grad school, one of the things I learned, and I encourage the listeners, was how I learned. And I didn't have to learn sitting in a classroom with somebody writing on the chalkboard and me taking notes and then going, you pass your test. I learned how to Google my way to victory in 2011. If there's a problem, go find it out on the internet. And I'm also a kinesthetic learner. So I have a pen here, I'm taking notes. I like to underline books and jot things in the sides. I like to take notes during meetings so that I can pay attention and absorb the information. And I can usually, find an article or two online that will teach me almost anything. And if y'all haven't been to investopedia.com, I recommend bookmarking that one. Anytime somebody did this word, you don't know what it is, investopedia.com is a good one.
Right on. Investopedia. Perhaps we'll link that in the description below as one of the bonus assets addressed, our bonus resources addressed in the conversation. Google my way to victory. I love that. Mike.
And could you, quick aside too, it's probably pronounced ChatGPT my way to victory at this point. Or use whatever the newest AI tool is to figure out, at least, get it 80% down.
Fair point. ChatGPT, Bard, Claude, my way to victory. Bing, my way to victory. Love that. I think that's a whole other conversation that perhaps if we have time to discuss where things are at, where things are going, we could get into that not so subtle topic of commercialization of generative AI. When you went into Deloitte, Mike, and you went through that process of being exposed to the business world for the first time, when you reflect on that chapter of your journey, what are some of the key learnings that you pulled out that helped fuel your work and your transition into the startup world after that?
For sure. I think one of the first lessons kind of came my first year. I was maybe a little cocky and felt a little overconfident, and I wasn't necessarily doing a lot of hard work, but I got to the end of my first year and I was on an introvert project for the first year before I did the felt many closings. And I gave myself a 1 and everything. I was like, I'm great. I'm the best score. This is awesome. And I vividly remember that my manager, we did our, year-end review. He gave me a 3. And I was like, what? And then we sat down and we talked about it. And I instinctively got very defensive. And he stopped me and he told me a phenomenal lesson that I had brought with me the rest of my life. He said, Mike, don't be defensive. I want to give you this feedback and it's a gift. I'm going to give it to you because I believe that you can change and you can improve, and I am invested in your overall growth and well-being. Now, there are other people that the manager works with that they wouldn't give this feedback to because I've already given up on them, and they've been too defensive and they haven't been open and receptive to hearing it. And they kind of, bite the hand that's feeding them and trying to help them, and he said, to be open and receptive. And what I would paraphrase is say, you smile and nod and you say, thanks for the feedback. I got feedback from my wife earlier today, and I just like, thank you for the feedback. And I'm not trying to be a smart ass about it. Just like you receive it, and then you can go think about what do you want to keep, what's worth it, what's not. But in the moment, to not be defensive, but also encourage everybody to like always have a glass of water around, because if somebody says something that upsets you and you take a sip of water, you literally can't say anything stupid while you're drinking. Because you are responsible for your second thought and your first action. And the greater you create that space between stimulus and response, second thought, first action, the wiser your responses will be, the more system 2 gets into the game. You're not just doing your system 1 default response. So that was a big lesson I learned from Deloitte, just accepting and receiving feedback. I also learned how to run meetings. Like I oversaw recruiting for University of Maryland students to join Deloitte. And this was pre-Zoom. So, it was structuring conference calls, sending calendar invites, sending agendas. Like, hi, you just joined. Great. We'll get started in a minute. Like these small little nuances of just like how to lead meetings and capture the action items and follow up afterwards. Also found that if you can type as fast as people can talk, a lot of partners will invite you to meetings just to take notes. And then you get to be in higher level meetings. So like find ways to add value to your boss and your boss's boss. Anything you can do to make your boss look good to their boss, they will greatly appreciate it. And don't ever complain to your boss's boss about your boss. That isn't a good hierarchy there.
You dropped some serious wisdom. That's like Sun Tzu style quotations marks. You are responsible for your second thought and your first action.
And I'm going to quote my buddy Steve Band with that one. I learned that one from his Foundations of Being Relatable course. So that's a good one for C.
Thank you for sharing that.
As your time at Deloitte evolved and developed, you started getting closer to the jump off point. Can you walk us through that bridge, that diving board moment when you were contemplating the jump into the startup world with the sunglasses company, and what it was like when you committed, when you made the decision to jump into it?
Well, as any good story, it's a love story. And I had fallen in love with a woman in circa 2010 that I thought would be my wife. And at our anniversary dinner for our 13-month anniversary, she broke up with me. And that rocked my world. It led to a downward spiral and some depression and some, oh man, like life is pretty terrible here. And that was probably January. So when you get to that June, I did not have grad classes over the summer. But I got an email from Thrillist.com about this cool social enterprise sunglass company. And I'd been like for 6 years. I love sunglasses. I like social impact. It was kind of like Tom's shoes. This was probably 2010, 2011, I guess, 2011. And I just emailed, get involved at Waveborn.com. I was like, hey, love this site. Like, what can I do to help? Such a cool. I had no idea that the founder lived 10 minutes away in DC, had just launched the company a week earlier. And I ended up being employee number 2. And I was, there's a great TED talk, which I'll send you for the show notes. The first follower with Derek Sievers. It's this like shirtless dancing guy who looks crazy. But then when the first other guy comes over and gets with him, he doesn't
I'm
want
crazy
to see.
in that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I love that video, man.
Yeah. And so like that was me. I was the first follower. And I did it for a year. And so my advice for listeners too is like, don't quit your job on Friday and start something new on Monday. Like, what are you doing from 5 p.m. to midnight? What are you doing on the weekends? What are you doing before you go to work? There was even a period of delivery. Like I got to work an hour earlier than I was supposed to each day, just so I could start working on stuff before everybody else came in. And then I would switch over to go light stuff. But like finding the time and space to build something that ultimately can produce, revenue. It replaced at least part of your paycheck, eventually your whole paycheck. There are different risks associated and amounts of savings you should have. And closing the loop on the love story, I had $10,000 for engagement ring that I didn't spend. And that was the money that I had when I ended up quitting in June of 2012. And I moved to the beach in Delaware. I was like, yeah, I got some money saved up. Like, let me go do this. Let me give it a shot. And the forcing function, I remember it's a Thursday and like I had a meeting at work and I was like, why is it not for me? We called my dad that night and we talked for, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think my dad realized that the outcome of that conversation was I was going to go in and quit at 9 a.m. the next day, but that's what happened. And so the the quitting your job to pursue something entrepreneurial at 25 and single, very different than when I did it again at 34 and married. I had to build out financial projections to show my wife and a whole PowerPoint presentation to show her, hey, here's the different things I can do. I think it's going to work, you know? And I think probably could have been a little bit more prepared the first time around and understood, cash conversion cycles and like unit economics of selling products but you live and you learn and I would encourage listeners to at least know what you don't know. Like, don't be blissfully ignorant. Be like, and a good phrase for them, but like aware of your shortcomings so that you can then seek out people who are smarter than you further along in their journey to give you the advice, tools, resources. Like, I have dozens and dozens of like helpful resources, like on valuable trust building gifts, with things I can just give to entrepreneurs. Like, you need help with customer discovery? Great. I got a whole list of customer discovery questions.
Nice.
Valuable trust building gifts. Thank you for sharing that, Mike. As you learned, in the Marine Corps, we'd say you got salt on your boots, and you earned your stripes, so to speak, to use in military terms, for the learnings you went through during the period of time you were second in command, employee number 2, and supporting the growth of the sunglass startup. You learned a number of things, among them being the importance of cash conversion cycles, unit economics and products. Now and then understanding, taking unknown unknowns, right? Completely unknown variables and making them known unknowns. Is that an accurate characterization?
Yes. Yeah. Known unknowns. And it's not dissimilar from like the 5 stages of the modern customer journey, where your customers, they start at problem unaware. Like, they don't even know they have a problem. And so a lot of the content on social media and newsletters and things that you're sending out, first and foremost, it's to make people problem aware. Logan, you know what time it is right now?
Yes.
And what I did was I directed your eyes to the top right of your computer so you could look at the little clock there. And I bet now I know that you have a Mac, if I just had to guess where the clock was. And what I did was I asked a question that directed your attention where I wanted it to go. And so how can you in your marketing ask questions to make people problem aware? And suddenly they're like, oh, like, now I know I have a problem with this. And then once the problem aware, they want to become solution aware. And so what are the different ways they can solve that problem? The 4th step would be product aware, where they now know that your product or service could be a potential solution for this problem they're aware of. There may be other solutions they're evaluating. And then stage 5 is they're most aware, where like they want your product, like make me an offer I can't refuse. After you've articulated, your differentiators, like what makes you, what your unique selling proposition is. And so as listeners think through, like, how are you marketing and building awareness with your tribe, your potential. I love this too. My friend Mark Finney told me the other day, don't call anybody prospects. Like, I've tried to remove prospect from my vocabulary. They're all future customers. So, and you're listening to this, you're a potential future customer from Malloy Industries. If you're growing a business and you need help, but you don't want to hire somebody full time, you want the flexibility of working with a fractional executive. That's our whole business, is, bringing in people for 5, 10, 20 hours a week for 3 months to start. You can ramp up or down on a month-to-month basis. Once they realize, like, the future of work is not paying full-time salaries and benefits and all of that overhead, but being able to, tap into the brain power that you need just for as much time as you need on a weekly or monthly basis.
Very smart. Future of work. I love that categorization. And I like the shift of language between prospect to potential future customer. I'm talking about the stages of the customer journey, speaking to them at that top level of problem, making them problem aware. Undoubtedly more to unpack there. However, as the dutiful timekeeper recognizes, still a bit more terrain to cover on the second pass of the narrative. Could you walk us through the point after you had the the trial, you learn the three distinctions between companies: for profit, nonprofit, and no profit, or not for profit, I believe you said. And unfortunately, the sunglass experience was a learning moment, by way of having to inform the investors that there would be no financial returns. It was on your 30th birthday, a humbling moment, no doubt, that transitioned you from the guy in the front stage to the guy rendering operations support more in a backstage capacity as you moved into was it the incubator or accelerator? I forget the exact term.
Yeah, Halcyon Incubator. So it is a residential incubator program. And kind of my role there was to make the magic happen and coordinate the different aspects of the program. I went from a CEO of a company to a program coordinator, to a program manager, program director. Like I worked my way up there, but like that transition, also says like, well, let me phrase it this way. If you think about like a round table and there's all these different seats around the table, from founder, CEO to the different leadership roles, to lower level roles, to investor and all these different things. If you do it right, at some point in your career, you should sit in like every seat around the table, which means from the moment you hear this podcast, you can start to visualize yourself in those different seats. It might not be next week. It might be in 5 years or 25 years that, you're the CEO or the lead investor in a company or, whatever it might be, but it creates this empathy for those roles and the ability to start to think through, well, what motivates them? What are their drivers? What's in it for them? If I was in that seat, how would I, be receptive to the message that I'm sending right now? And so, look, and I got one valuable trust building gift I'll give you for the show notes. It's a book summary of a book called So What? And it's all about talking through the lens of like, what's in it for me, for the audience. So like, if I'm telling you something like, so what, like, why does this matter? And I think there's some really good advice in there for folks that are trying to think through how to communicate with diverse stakeholders in your company, externally, investors, all sorts of things.
Why, thank you for that. Book show notes for So What being a valuable trust building gift in the show notes. Looking forward to cutting through that myself and also sharing it with the good folks joining us on this conversation. Mike, as you evolved in your practice of servant leadership, sitting at all the seats at the table, developing empathy for those roles, making the magic happen, going from CEO to program director and rising back up, there was it sounded like the next transition went to entrepreneur in residence, where you worked with entrepreneurs, helped them flesh out their ideas. I haven't heard you mention the Ikigai, and I'm wondering if you can share how that phase in your career has helped compound on previous learnings, allowed you to hone in a unique methodology, and also allow you to deploy and scale Malloy Industries.
Love it. And you mentioned a key word in there, compound. And I think that's compound effect of as you're going throughout your career, a lot of people might think it's win or lose. I'm going to reframe that completely. It's win or learn. Anything that you try to do that doesn't work out as you expected, that's a learning opportunity. And I have a morning affirmation I say every day: always will I seek the seed of triumph in every adversity. So whenever there's an adversity, something goes wrong, it doesn't play out exactly as expected, but what I learned from it, what was my mindset going into it? What did I think was going to happen? And this is true for, everything from sales presentations to asking somebody out on a date to trying to pick what movie to watch on Netflix to be with your partner. And the more you can compound those learnings, you're informing your own algorithms in your head. I think we might talk a little bit about AI, we're doing other stuff, but you as a human being, like your brain needs to pattern match to other instances. And so at this stage, I'm 37 years old, like a lot of the way I view the world is pattern matching with my historical experience and the experiences I've learned from other people. You don't have to go for everything yourself. If you can read books, and then listen to podcasts or audiobooks or, whatever it might be to absorb more information. One of the things I love about being an entrepreneur resident at Georgetown is getting to share my experiences with the students, but doing it in a way not where like I'm writing a prescription and here, do this, it worked for me. It's going to be great. Just do what I say. It's based on question instead. there's this kind of like ask, tell continuum where are you telling them what to do, or are you asking questions to help them peel back layers of the onion, come up with their own plan, and then go see, what they learned from the market, from getting out of the building and talking to potential customers and room. And so I very much enjoyed that. And, I'm still heavily involved at Georgetown. And, I think that's, what's the analogy? Like a lot of student entrepreneurs or early entrepreneurs, they're like pedaling up this hill on like a 1-speed bike and like wetting very profusely. I'm not, I'll say the analogy is like me and other people are on their way down the hill in like a self-driving car, just like shouting out the window some words of wisdom and like momentum and encouragement. Like, you're super, keep going. You're doing great. Just, watch out for that, sand trap over there. And, that dog is going to bark really loud, but it's only like a 10-pound dog. So like, don't worry, it's not actually going to attack you. And by the way, talk to Joe, because, Joe can help. Whether or not they talk to Joe, and trying to encourage them and support them in those journeys, because, I got to where I am by standing on the shoulders of giants, getting so much advice and wisdom, even from the other entrepreneurs in residence. Like I started doing this, I think when I was 28, 29, it was like a decade younger than almost everybody else who was an EIR. I just happened to be hanging out in the business school at Georgetown, trying to help people. And, they kind of noticed and eventually asked me to teach them things along the way as well.
You're a man of great insight, great wisdom, Mike. Thank you for sharing that. Always seek the triumph through adversity. Did I get that right?
Always will I seek the seed of triumph in every adversity.
Always will I seek the seed of triumph in adversity. The algorithms in your brain, pattern matching based on the historical experience that you've gone through directly and that you've learned through observation, through learning.
The other thing I want to mention too was this concept of ikigai. So if you're not familiar with it, it's a Japanese word based on 4 Venn diagram circles of what are you good at, what do you love to do, what does the world need, and what will people pay you for? And so the center of all 4 of those things is kind of like your life's purpose, your mission. And I encourage folks to it's a journal exercise. Like I have all my students at Georgetown, go through this and actually answer those 4 questions and say, hey, based on your answers, what does your career trajectory look like? Like, how can you kind of find that sweet spot? And I feel blessed to say, for me, the middle of that is sharing positive energy, sharing teachings, and making connections. Like I'm a super connector. I see these patterns and I'm just able to recognize who should talk to who or what resource do they need that can unlock them and solve like a very narrow problem today that, it may expose you to more problems tomorrow, but you solve this thing, and then let's figure out how we can help with the next one as well. But that kind of sweet spot in the middle is a great way to think about it. And what do you want to do with your career? I was talking to a friend of mine, John Hancock, earlier today, and, we met a decade ago. I was selling sunglasses. He had a custom suit and tailoring business in DC. And he jokes that it was pretty good business, but I didn't really care about making people dress nice or dress well. He said it more artfully than me. But the key was he wasn't all in, passionately motivated and driven to really solve this problem for people. So if you're diving into entrepreneurship, if you're swimming in this entrepreneurship land, make sure you really fall in love with your future customers' problems. Don't fall in love with your solution and think, hey, I've got this brilliant idea, it's definitely going to solve it. Who are the people that you really truly want to help, that you get, that they're your tribe, and you want to build something that can really serve them. For us at Malloy Industries, that's B2B SaaS CEOs. It's, CEOs of tech companies that are trying to build, grow, scale great companies. Typically they've, got 1 or 2 million in revenue, but their sales have been on plateau. They're stuck and they can't grow. The only way that they know how to make grow is for them to work harder. I don't want to work harder. I want to work smarter. And we have fractional sales executives who can come in and actually identify where is their friction in the funnels. The conversion rates are too low, their customer acquisition cost is too high, the SDRs, their sales development reps are underperforming. Wherever those inefficiencies are in the sales process, nobody's using the CRM. We're able to fix that and help kind of plug some of those holes, smooth out with some sandpaper where the friction, and ultimately scale the sales engine for the CEO without using their time as fuel. Because right now it's hey, let me work harder and harder and harder, and I can sell more. but like, what if they need to go do one of the other 17 hair on fire problems that they have as a CEO? Or they need to go out and fundraise. Like, fundraising is a full-time job. Like, you can't be chief fundraiser and chief revenue officer at the same time. And so, that kind of segues into our view of like the future of work. It's all about fractional executives. It's building this dream team of, folks that are amazing that you don't need for 40 plus hours a week in a large 6-figure salary. Most of our projects are 5 to 10K a month. We started 3 months and then it's kind of month to month. What do you need? How can we serve you? Eventually, as they grow and they're successful, they want to hire full-time people. That's great. We'll help interview them, train them, and send you on your way. And we'll run the next one, or, we can plug a hole in a different part of the business outside of sales. As we have about, I think, 225 fractional executives at this point in all areas of the business. So,
Thanks for sharing that. I recognize we're running up on the point where I'll have to be the timekeeper and start landing the plane. There's no doubt a lot to explore on how the origin stories for Malloy Industries and specifically how you started getting connected to that problem space and the customer segment of B2B SaaS CEOs at that place of hitting the ceiling, 1 to 2 million in revenue and building a network of fractional executives, and the conviction you have on the future of working with fractional executives, building that dream team and bringing in the targeted brain power. I wonder if you could leave us with your thoughts on a final topic before we plant the flag in the sand, Mike, and that's your perspective on where the puck is going. As one of my mentors, Hans Hickler, would say, how things are evolving and the trends you're seeing in addition to the fractionalization of executives, but also how emerging technologies will enable enhanced customer experience, employee experience, and other factors from generative AI and potentially even spatial.
yeah, absolutely. And I think, AI is not going away. It can replace a reasonable amount of tasks, or at least streamline them. And one of the leadership principles I live by is the 10-80-10 rule. When you want to delegate something, you should be there for the first 10%. You should scope out, what does success look like? What's the end zone? Where's the goal that the puck is going to, if you will? And why is it important? Why are we going there? And then typically I would give the project to a human and say, hey, you go do 80% of it. You may zig where I zagged, but we're going to go in the right direction. That 80% can in many cases be filled by ChatGPT or another AI tool at this point. Like, if you're thoughtful enough in that prompt engineering and you want a skill that's going to serve you the rest of your life, learn how to write better and better prompts for ChatGPT. Like, I'm a student of that game for sure. And, the more detailed you get there, the nuances. I learned recently that you could say in the middle of a prompt, like V equals 0 to 5, whatever number, and it's the verbosity. And so like V equals 0, very short. V equals 5, you get in 5-paragraph essays, it's very verbose. And I think it defaults to 3. So if you lower it to like 2 or 1, you get a little shorter answers there. Being able to be the human being who interfaces with AI, because various colleagues of various ages, but certainly as you get more established in your career, and even me, like, I don't love using ChatGPT. I'm not in there all day, every day. Like, I have an operation manager who does a lot of things in there. I'm like, this is great. We have a daily dad joke newsletter, and Tina helps put together all of the email subject lines. She just sent the joke to ChatGPT and says, hey, write a witty subject line about this that doesn't give away the punchline.
Nice.
And it's great because I can't mentally come up with that. Right? That's really hard, but I'm good at the dad jokes. Speaking of which, look, how does a penguin build its house? It glues it together. Digital.
Nice.
Yeah. And I think I will throw there. Do you know where college-aged vampires like to shop for clothes? Yeah. They go to Forever 21. They don't get older.
You didn't mention you got to be a dad and quick to pick up on this.
I'm keeping you on your toes. Right? I want to end this, or ring of prefer. What was the other one? What did the sushi say to the bumblebee?
What?
What's up, me?
Nice.
So one of our core values at Malloy Industries is being enthusiastically fun, which means I slip a dad joke into like every meeting, or I just throw it in the PS in my emails, like work should be fun. And we were talking about AI and, getting it to do a bunch of things. So 10-80-10 rule, to bring it back, the last 10%, you come back. You got to edit it, polish it up. Hey, let's wordsmith this piece. Let's change the color or the font there. But I think that is a lot of it. And so knowing what problems need to be solved, like the strategy for marketing, let's say, if you want more marketing qualified leads, like what are the things that you're offering? How are you designing them? What's the headline? What's the hook? What's the call to action? Humans need to at least frame what it is they're solving and how they want to solve it. I think you can use AI to write some of that copy for sure. I also think that ultimately, like, people buy from people. And so having the interpersonal skills, and like, that was something I learned in grad school too, was like, I don't want to just like be in a basement jamming on code all day, every day, all night. Like, I actually like humans. I'm kind of fun to hang out with and talk and be, interpersonal with. So like learning how to be charismatic, both warmth and competence, you put them together. And, all things being equal, people buy from people that they like or that they know, like, and trust. And all things being unequal, they buy from people that they like. Like, even if it costs more money, if I like you, yeah, I'll probably get into business with you. And so, understanding the value of human relationships and building those connections, and being like a go-giver, where you're willing to give first. You want to add value on the front end. You're not a what's in it for me. It's much more about like, how can I really help you, because your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you receive in payment. And so if you're giving 5x, 10x tons of value, if you give value before you even like ask for people to buy anything from you, then good things are going to happen. And part of it is karma, and like the universe kind of works itself out. But as long as you're showing up as your authentic self, and you're serving more and more people and thinking about how do you use technology to scale your impact. Like, I started building this fractional executive company like 2.5 years ago because I realized I needed to scale the work that we were doing. I couldn't just do the client service and have it all be responsible for like Mike's billable hours. That was a tough lesson learned. My mom passed away a few years ago, and prior to that, it was just Mike doing all the work, and I took time off to grieve and be with family. And I realized in September 21 that I didn't earn any money, that month. And like, that was okay for a month. But I also found out that my wife was pregnant with our chief cuteness officer coming in April. And so I needed to think through, hey, how does this business, Malloy Industries, how does it work as a scale without me being the linchpin? And that has led me down this path of fractional executives, and several hundred customer discovery interviews later with, entrepreneurs and investors and fractional executives. Like, I'm all in. And once you acquire these rare and valuable skills, you have this career capital. Like, you don't have to go sit and chew for 40 hours and make GPS reports and think that's the only way, you can make money. You can find lucrative opportunities to use those skills and get out of the rat race and live at the beach in Delaware or wherever your heart desires, and find ways to help more and more people. And, look, my hope is that having this conversation has hopefully helped some of the listeners as well have some new lenses to look at what they're doing with their career and in their companies.
I certainly imagine that it has. Mike Malloy, you are a wealth of insight. Thank you for sharing your time, your perspective. It's very valuable. Where can people get in touch with you if they want to connect after hearing this conversation?
Absolutely. Would love to connect on LinkedIn, MW Malloy. My email is mike@malloyindustries.com. And we've got a great page, malloyindustries.com/pod. So I'll give that to you with some of the links that we talked about in this podcast. And would love to hear from any listeners. Feel free to connect on LinkedIn, send me an email if there's anything we do to help. And, but yeah, we've got dozens and dozens of resources, these valuable trust-building gifts. Happy to share them with you if they can give you a boost up the hill as you're pedaling frantically on that bike.
Right on. I'll make sure that those resources and links are in the bio below for easy access. Thanks for joining us today, Mike. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Logan. This was a true joy.